doping. Anyway, the paper from the I need to read now, I should turn to. As I said, it's a paper from a rider who I will not name. He's anonymous because of the situation the riders exist in. He is a very, very well-known professional at the highest level of our sport. The paper is entitled, "We are riding like a flock of sheep." As a professional cyclist who is taking part in the World Championship this week in Geelong, I believe that the UCI has used the war on doping as a weapon which has become uncontrollable, an uncontrollable power over the teams and the cyclists. Professional teams have been forced, they have been terrorised into paying for the biological passport. But we are people, and they take advantage of it to invade our intimacy without ever giving us the right to speak. They forget that we are human beings. I am able to see my blood levels in the Adams system. Nevertheless, I do not have any guarantee that they are real. Why should I have trust in their tests? They could be easily manipulated without too much trouble. It is always the same people who come to test us, and there are not many of them. They said they would create a team of testers, but so far they have not done this. It wouldn't be difficult for them to set up a small mobile laboratory, a few in each country, in which they could extract the sample of the blood and analyse it in front of the rider. Some people might say this is impractical or expensive, but our lives and our livelihoods are at stake. I know pretty well what my levels are, and I wouldn't complain if they obtained the same results in front of me. But I would complain if, as they do now, turn up an abnormal sample a year afterwards. I wouldn't be able to remember that test, whether I had hemorrhoids at the time or whether I'd been at altitude at that moment. But on the contrary, if the result is abnormal, there and then in front of me, they could quickly ask me what my explanation was, what the problem is, and as long as there is one, I could give an explanation as long as there is one. If there's not an explanation, that means they've got me, they've caught me. Then I could say nothing. In addition, if a rider sees more irregularities or the machine is not properly calibrated, he could go to an independent laboratory to have it double-checked and verified. Otherwise, it is possible that everything could be manipulated. Simply what I'm trying to say here is, on one hand, there are too many weak points in the current system. When things come out right, it is not a problem. But what about when they don't? If it's done properly, okay, but what if it's not? There are riders on the blacklist who have to explain their reasons to a panel of experts. But how do they do it? The tests are taken at any time of the day, in the morning or in the afternoon, and then there is a lapse of time in between the collection and the arrival of the sample at the laboratory. It could be transported by air, by car, anyway. There are too many inconsistencies and points where things can become unstuck. For example, the results at Paris-Nice this year, they were all higher than normal. All of them, each and every one. Why? Something doesn't fit. Discrepancies like this could cause troubles with the biological passport. I've seen variations in my profile, which could be normal, but might be considered abnormal by the panel. I do not know when or how they decide. I really don't. Surely the statistical formula they use and the calculations are correct, except that it's not clear how they do it, nor is the way they arrange the results. In the process of testing for EPO in the urine, a laboratory must follow 70 different steps. Each of these steps could be manipulated. If the laboratory was independent, no one would have any particular interest in manipulating them. There would not be any misunderstanding if the laboratories were independent. Nevertheless, these days we can see some odd things, such as receiving a negative test from one laboratory and passing it through many others until a positive test arrives. I ask you, who watches the controllers? Why cannot there be an independent contra panel which also examines the results? Now, because of the blacklist, we have to suffer. The only thing that exists is doubts. What is going to happen to me in the future? How am I ever going to be able to explain? It's at this stage that corruption finally comes into play. It is absolutely necessary that we prevent corruption. I mean, I'm not saying that corruption exists, because I do not have evidence of it, and someone could bring charges against me. Nevertheless, the fragility of the system under which we live could quite easily give rise to it. The UCI could use the results to gain power. The wealthier teams will be treated better. Teams will contact the UCI every time they wish to contract a new cyclist to make sure that he is good in their eyes. I do not agree that it should only be the UCI who decides who is good and who is bad. They should not have the power of ending someone's life and career. We are professionals, we have families to support, we live from this, and we have to put up with a situation where a person from the UCI who might never have ridden a bike tells us, not this one is bad, put him on the blacklist. I agree that coaches and directors could be able to check the biological passport of a rider in order to know if the rider is clean or not. Unfortunately, the path that the UCI has taken is one of taking power and eliminating the possibilities that someone else could intervene, eliminating the possibilities that somebody else could even speak. Even managers complain about the lack of representation that the teams have within the UCI. No one is allowed to have or give an opinion, not even on some of the most important issues, such as race rules, rankings, points. Instead, the UCI presents and approves its projects without consultation. This is not normal, this is not right. Neither the teams nor the riders are able to say anything. We are riding like a flock of sheep. The solution would be to create an independent organisation. But the problem will be how to come to an agreement. The last time that we were united was in 2008, when we rode Paris-Nice in spite of the threats of the UCI. Since then, a lot of odd things have occurred. On one side, we find the races that ASO organises, and on the other side, we find the ones organised by the Pro Tour. In addition, the same teams and the same riders get different rankings. We must learn from other sports, like Formula One, like tennis, and take advantage of their experiences and use them to build something new for cycling. I'm sure that there are a lot of smart people who will be interested in organising it, and who will also be able to get some benefit and power, just as everybody else. They will get the system moving. But up until now, all we've had is an iron ball which nothing can penetrate. Professional teams do not need the UCI. It would be better if the UCI looks under the under-23s and then gives us the freedom and transfers some of its power. We must create an organisation that is able to take care of the sport, take care of the races, and take care of the image of cycling in order to improve cycling. There are professional associations for cyclists, but unfortunately they do not think about this. Additionally, the riders are not united. The Pro Tour should be independent from the UCI. Along with that,